About 20,000 years ago, North Africa was green and humid, and the region we call the Sahara today was not a desert. Fossil evidence shows that North Africa's Stone Age inhabitants were tall with long limbs and low foreheads. We know a little about them from their burial practices. For instance, the discovery of their skeletons showed they might have deliberately removed some of their front teeth. Archaeologist Professor Abdulrahim Mohib says early human remains have been found in prehistoric caves or grottos in Morocco.
The Íbéromoristes are people who developed modern techniques of tools. They started to bury their dead and they start thinking about the other world. For example, if we speak about La Grotte des Pigeons, east of Morocco, just near the frontier between Morocco and Algeria, in this cave we discovered a necropole of about 180 skeletons of Íbéromoristes. And we do discover a skull which is what's called trepanation. The first chirurgical intervention, if you want.
So you must be great neuroscientists now, then.
So the people who lived here 20,000 years ago used tools so effectively that they carried out brain surgery. Archaeologist Slimane Hatchi can tell us more.
Donc, ce Sahara n'a pas été le territoire d'une population. C'est avec cette civilisation ibéro-maurusienne que nous allons avoir en Afrique du Nord une civilisation qui fait tout le long de la Méditerranée, qui se développe le long de l'Atlantique au Maroc, et aussi, mais on ne l'a pas trouvé dans la Méditerranée orientale sur la côte tunisienne.
Ufsa in modern-day Tunisia. Around 7000 BC, this is where a new people emerged, known as the Capsians. The Capsians were tall, of Mediterranean appearance, with some African features. We know they were artistic. They decorated ostrich eggs and engraved stones, for instance. Rida Bousoufara is from the Institute of Archaeology in Tunisia.
Il est généralement admis que les Capsiens ont occupé l'intérieur du territoire, alors que les Ibéro-Maurusiens ont occupé les côtes, surtout les zones dunaires. Traditionnellement, ces deux civilisations ont été totalement séparées, dans le temps et dans l'espace. Mais maintenant, les nouvelles recherches sont en train de remettre en question toutes ces vérités, étant donné qu'il s'est avéré que chronologiquement, ils se chevauchaient, et que aussi sur le plan territorial, ils se chevauchaient aussi, ce qui fait que l'affaire ou la question est encore à remettre en question. Nos connaissances sur ces civilisations concernent essentiellement leur mode d'habitat, leur technique de taille de pierre. Donc les éléments les plus importants dont on dispose, ce sont les pierres taillées, les outils, mais aussi les ossements d'animaux qu'ils ont chassés.
The Capsian culture seemed to end around 4000 BC, and this is about the time the people known as the Berbers, or as they prefer to be called, the Amazigh, appeared. They could be a historic mix of the Capsians and the Íbéromoristes, but we're not exactly sure. This means that from 4000 to 2000 BC, the Berbers were becoming established as the inhabitants of North Africa. They actually refer to themselves as the Amazigh, meaning free people or noblemen. The Romans gave their newly conquered land the name of Ifriqiya.
Oui, on parlait de l'Afrique. Eh bien, l'Afrique, c'est en fait la Tunisie. C'est le pays qui, dans l'Antiquité, a pris le nom de Africa, Provincia Africa, qui allait de Carthage jusqu'à Constantine en Algérie et de Carthage jusqu'à Tripoli, et qui ensuite, petit à petit, est devenu le nom de tout le continent africain.
You can see from the ruins at Hippo, modern-day Annaba in Algeria, how well the Numidian kings lived at this time.
Berber king called Gaia renamed it Hippo Regius and made it his capital. Behind me are the ruins of his palace, and Hippo Regius remained a royal city for the Berber kings who succeeded Gaia. It was his son Massinissa who helped the Romans defeat Carthage, and it was he who united the Berber kingdoms into one single kingdom called Numidia.
Massinissa was the most powerful of the Berber kings. He was born around 238 BC. This coin bears a depiction of his face.
This is the main road in the royal city of Hippo, and I was trying to do a regal walk because this is where the Berber kings of Numidia would have walked along with their families and entourage.
Dr. Kulthum Kituni is the director of the museum at Constantine.
تعرفي أن مدينة قسنطينة بنيت على صخرة وكانت محصنة بالواد، إذن فكانت كمان موقع كمكان استراتيجي للمدينة الملكية.
Massinissa was the Numidian king who established a dynasty that lasted for 250 years.
يقولوا عن ماسينيسا هذا الإنسان القوي حتى إلى السنة 80 من عمره يركب الحصان.
Massinissa had backed the Romans in their battle against the Carthaginians, so they allowed him to rule and even expand his territories.
على كل حال ماسينيسا كان معروف بمقولة إفريقيا للأفارقة، أسترجع أرض آبائي وأجدادي.
As it was, King Massinissa reigned for many decades until his death around 148 BC.
King Massinissa died at the ripe old age of about 90. It's believed he was laid to rest in this mausoleum on a hilltop just outside Constantine. He'd had an active and productive life. In fact, he left behind more than 40 children, including one who was just 4 years old. The dynasty of Numidian kings he'd established was to last more than 200 years.
Massinissa was succeeded by one of his sons, Micipsa. After Micipsa's death in 118 BC, a power struggle ensued, and his nephew, Jugurtha, became king. He clashed with the Romans, triggering the Jugurthine Wars around 112 BC. New Berber kingdoms came into existence. One called Mauritania, for instance, was established in the 3rd century BC and corresponds with the Mediterranean coast. Another member of the Numidian royal family, Juba I, made one final attempt to maintain some independence. The kingdom of Numidia, King Juba I's son, who bore his father's name, was taken to Rome as a youth and educated there. On his return to North Africa, Juba II built the city of Caesarea. Juba II ruled over land from western Algeria to Morocco. He established his capital at Volubilis, in what is now the northwest of Morocco.
Dans les effigies monétaires qu'on voit en relation avec Juba II, on peut voir l'éléphant, qui est un symbole africain.
This is his magnificent mausoleum in what is modern-day northern Algeria. It's where he and his wife, Cleopatra Selene, were buried. The mausoleum was built entirely from stone and originally stood 40 meters high, but it's been damaged throughout the centuries by the elements and vandals. After Juba's death, his son and heir Ptolemy should have succeeded him, but he was killed by Caligula, the Roman emperor. After Ptolemy's death, the Romans tightened their grip on North Africa. They established many towns during the time they dominated the region. But whilst these may have been largely designed by Romans, they were built by local labourers and made from local materials, so it would be more accurate to describe them as Numidian Roman.
هذه المدن اللي يقال عنها في أنها رومانية بالنسبة إلى فقط إلى تخطيط العمراني الكارد والديكومانس، ولكن لو ننظر إلى النمط المعماري البنايات نجدها تختلف عن المدينة الرومانية. لم يأتوا الرومان إلى منطقة هكذا شاغرة ويقطنون فيها.
Experts here believe that only about a third of the original Roman town of Tipaza has been excavated. ها أنتوا من هذا المدينة؟
نعم
من هذا المدينة. وأنتوا عارفين إيش هذا المبنى؟
هذا عبارة عن متحف.
متحف. ومن تعرفوا من أي وقت في تاريخكم؟
من الرومان.
من الروماني، من الحضارة الرومانية، الجيل الروماني. وأنتم بتعتبروا يعني هذا تاريخكم.
نعم، تاريخنا وأرضنا.
صح، ويعني مبسوطين عشان عندكم تاريخ.
فرحانين بها وهذه جميلة.
Now, one of the more interesting jobs that the locals had to do was to empty the urine from the public latrines, take it to the tanneries where it was used to cure leather. Now, the Romans used to tax urine, and if you think about it, that would have provided them with a pretty steady source of income because, let's face it, it was never in short supply.
To get a better look around the ruins of Timgad,
you get an idea of what life was like here in Timgad from this graffiti that's been scratched into the stone in the forum. And it's inscribed in Latin. I'll give you the translation. It says, hunting, washing, playing, laughing, this is life.
By the 1st century AD, North Africa was important economically for the Romans. Not only was it the breadbasket for the Roman Empire,